Okay, welcome everybody. I'll let everybody get a seat and I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here today. Just to let you know, this event is being recorded, but your voices will not be picked up. You're going to have a microphone to be picked up. My name is Merrill Fei, and I'm a volunteer for Trident United Way. I'm on the steering committee for Women United, and that's one of 3 affinity groups. And we have other representatives from some of our other affinity groups today, the African American Leadership Council and the Young Leadership Council. And they may or may not have on little yellow smiley face stickers. So if you have questions about what that is, feel free to stop and talk with any of them or grab me after. There's also some materials around that'll explain what our affinity groups are at Trident United Way. So let's see. Maybe? Oh, this technology is awesome. It's me. It's definitely me. All right, well, it will catch up with me. Oh, we can keep moving past that. Today is special because we have such a large audience. We have such a large space. We were able to bring some friends in today. So I wanted to explain who our affinity groups are. So again, you can ask questions of them in the audience. So they should have the smiley face sticker. And many thanks to Blackbaud for allowing us this beautiful space to host and gives us this extra space. Now, and many thanks. I'm going to give a shout out to Brian Willing in the back. He's running our AV today, making this very fancy. He helped Blackbaud create this space. So if you have any audiovisual questions, I hear he might be for hire. So pop back to the back and talk with him if you have questions. And then, of course, thank you to our Trident United Way staff. They make it very easy to be a volunteer and be upfront. They are just amazing to work with. And lastly, thank you to our panelists. I'm so excited that they could be here today to share their wisdom with us. Phyllis Martin from Tri-County Cradle to Career, Gina Shuler from Home Telecom, Latoya Lewis from Trident United Way, and Paola Gutíerrez from the South Carolina Office of Rural Health. So thank you for being here. And then lastly, let's see if I can get the slide to go again. Thank you to our generous Alliance sponsors. Donations are not, do not go towards activities like this. It's sponsors like this that allow us to do things like that, and 100% of our donation dollars go to our mission. And the mission of United Way being the to be a catalyst for measurable community transformation in education, financial stability, and health. So how many of you access the internet on more than one device before you came this morning? That's a lot. How many of you access the internet on more than 2 devices? It's a lot. That's a lot. Well, one of my favorite internet devices is my Echo Dot. So I get up every morning and I say, Alexa, what's the weather today? And then I knew to wear short sleeve shirts today, you know. So I'm going to ask the panelists to think about their favorite piece of internet tech. And when I finally give you the microphone, maybe you can tell us one of your most favorite pieces of tech that gets you on the internet. But while I'm making light of, you know, our collective digital fluency, the topic today, digital literacy, is a very serious topic. And it's with that, and that's what we're here to discuss today. And we sit in this very tech savvy room with 3 cameras, and we're streaming over the internet to Zoom to record it all. I just feel very lucky. And I feel thankful that our age and our physical ability and our location and our income level all have allowed us to be so digitally versed. But today we're going to talk about and discuss the absence of digital access for many in our area and what we're doing about that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Phyllis Martin, and then I will let her introduce the rest of our panel. So Phyllis is the CEO and president of Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative, TCCC, in Charleston, South Carolina. She has been working for the not-for-profit sector for more than 20 years with the sole purpose of helping communities solve their toughest challenge, implementing effective, sustainable change. Phyllis has led a multitude of organizations across the country and has been called upon by national nonprofit organizations to assist with strategic planning and redesign. She's an innovative and strategic thinker who has led complex community initiatives. She's a gifted communicator, and we are so fortunate to have her here in the Lowcountry and thankful that she can join us today as our moderator. So I give you Phyllis Martin.
Hello and good afternoon. Am I on now? Yes. Hello and good afternoon. How is everybody today? I need better than that. How is everybody today? Woo! All right, there we go. So for what it's worth, the answer to the question to start with is anything, any device that has directional capabilities built in is my favorite device because my friends and my TCC colleagues know that I am directionally challenged and can get nowhere without very specific turn-by-turn direction. So that is one of my favorite pieces of technology and is necessary. I am grateful to be here today with all of you. I'm thrilled to be moderating this amazing panel that has been put together on behalf of Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative and the Lowcountry Digital Equity Coalition. And as I told some of my fellow panelists this morning, I was on a call right before I came here with a colleague at a national organization who just happened to mention I was going to be doing this today. We were talking about the work, and she said from their perspective, this is one of the top 5 issues of our generation. Digital equity and inclusion is one of the top 5 issues that has to be addressed and is being addressed, as you will hear throughout the country. So a little bit about TCC. I'm going to pretend this is woohoo. Yes, yes. I get asked all of the time, what is an organization with that mission and that vision doing in the digital equity and inclusion space? And I would tell you, if you just take a minute and look at our mission talks about systems, and systems that surround children and their families include things like housing and transportation and health and mental health. And all of those things intersect and depend on digital access, digital inclusion, and digital equity. So the work that you are about to hear about is a result of the region and state's response to one of the many issues illuminated by the pandemic. And for some of our panel members, they and their organizations were really working on this issue before COVID. For TCC, we began this work as a result of the community's input and request in early 2020. And at that time, the community, per their own responses, our collective throughout the region responses to surveys, were most concerned about the issue of resiliency. And that data drilled to digital equity as a critical response to the issue of resiliency. So why digital equity and why are we here? Why are we here talking about it? In addition to what Merrill just shared with you and what I just shared with you, digital equity or lack thereof has now been named a determinant of health. As I already said, it cuts across every sector that impacts children and families along the cradle to career continuum, and that includes early childhood education. It includes workforce development. It includes access to healthcare. It includes access to basic needs. It includes how we look at becoming economically mobile throughout our region. We also know that there is $400 million that is in the state, and that is for infrastructure. And we know Gina's going to talk with us a little bit about that and how significant that is for our state and particularly for our region. And that will increase children and families' ability to access the technology. However, there's also, and it was just announced this week, another $100 million that's coming in to build a plan that will address the issue of adoption. And both of those things, it's the combination of those things that we need in our region and in our state, so that after all the infrastructure is built, that families know how to use the technology, that they have the right number of and types of devices for their family, right? That they are digitally literate, that they know and understand how it works, that they have some understanding about security and safety concerns, all the things I think most of us here just kind of sit and take for granted on a particular level, right? But we want our region to have sustained it. We want to look back after all of this is said and done and say, this is what is different for our region because of the investments in infrastructure and because of our particular attention to digital equity and inclusion in our region. And if you look at that number of households, you can multiply that times about 3 if you wanted to get the most accurate number, because that's an average of how many children are living and families are living per household. So it's a pretty significant number. So what you're looking at now is definition, and it's from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance of what digital inclusion is and what digital equity is. And you don't have to memorize that, but it's important to get grounded on what we mean, because there are activities that we're going to talk about today that will drive us to what we want and need, which is digital equity. And we want to make sure that all individuals and communities have the information and technology capacity needed for full participation in our society. And I can guarantee you, if I ran through here like a Tasmanian devil and took all of your phones away and shut down all of your computers, what that would feel like to you, and said you couldn't have them back for 10 days, just 10 days. Yeah, well, and then there's that. And then there is that. I don't disagree. So it's important that you understand that this low country digital equity inclusion work of a coalition doesn't just happen on its own. And as I mentioned to you earlier, many of the panelists and coalition members have been working on digital equity since before the pandemic. But we weren't working together. We were working, Cradle to Career was working, panelists were working, numerous organizations, coalition members were working on it all together. It's Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative that is very intentional in our role, that it takes an understanding that it takes networked, aligned and leveraged partners committed to a single vision with the capacity to understand and navigate and use data to make long-term systemic and sustainable impact. And that providing the facilitation and the data and the coordination and administration of that work is the work of Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative. So here you can see what is actually going on. And there are 4 main areas that really need to take place almost at the same time, if at all possible, for us to reach digital equity and inclusion. And one of them, as you can see, is connectivity, access to high-speed internet. One of them, as I said already, is the right number and the right types of devices per household. One of them is adopting that technology, knowing how to use it and how to sustain it. And one of them is really capacity building and advocacy. And that is what is going on right now with the coalition in the low country region. So I want to be very clear, and I say this often, right? And I want to make sure that we're sending the message loud and clear. Access on its own will never equal adoption. You have to have 2 things happening at the same time. And that requires groups of dedicated organizations and partners that are on the ground working inside and with communities based on what they need, so that when the availability is there, they are ready and prepared to use it, adopt it, and sustain it over a period of time. And that really is why one of the reasons why this work is so critically important and what we're here to talk with you about today. So I hope I have provided some context for the panel discussion. It takes multiple sectors and partnerships that are aligned and resources that are aligned together and a solid plan to achieve goals. And so it is now my pleasure to introduce you to the panel and begin what I know is going to be an amazing conversation. So, am I still on? I can't tell. Yes. Okay. So we're going to start by asking each panelist to please introduce herself, the organization that you represent, and how your organization is working toward digital equity and inclusion. And Gina, we're going to start with you.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I am Gina Shuler. I am the Vice President of Marketing at Home Telecom Company. I have been there 31 years next month. I actually started in 1992 right out of college, and I have seen a lot of technological changes over those 30 years. Home Telecom has a 120-year history in Berkeley County. We started with 6 telephone lines in Moncks Corner. We now have, we're serving 40,338 internet customers across Berkeley County, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. From a digital equity and inclusion standpoint, we're doing a lot, and I can't wait to share some more information, but basically we are doing, oh no, not yet. I'm just giving us some emphasis. But we serve some of the most rural areas in Berkeley County, Dorchester County, even Charleston County. And we've been serving those areas for years. However, it's what is commonly known as underserved. So there's a lot of improvement there, and I can go into more details lately as exactly what we're doing there. But in addition to that, we also provide in-kind and monetary contributions to various organizations to help with digital education.
Thank you, Gina. And next, we are moving right along. Latoya.
Hi, everybody. My name is Latoya Lewis. I am the Berkeley Resource Connection Center Manager with Trident United Way. In our center, what we kind of do is work with 3 pillars: health, financial stability, and education. We work with a lot of different partners to provide assistance to clients in Berkeley County, including Berkeley Electric. So I'm looking forward to talking about that soon.
Thank you so much. And Paula.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paola Gutíerrez, and I'm with the South Carolina Office of Rural Health. It's very interesting. It's been a wild ride because people, when they meet me at events related to broadband or other sectors I'm sprinkling myself into, they think rural health, but is it just clinics and hospitals? And no, we're not. So we embarked on a project in 2018. It was the Rural Health Action Plan. So we looked at all of the things under the social determinants of health umbrella, and looking at how we can improve rural health in those areas. And broadband is one of those. And our first investment in broadband was in 2019 in partnership with Palmetto Care Connections and the Hospital Association. And we funded Jim Stritzinger to finish and create the first maps of South Carolina. Those maps are found on the South Carolina Digital Drive.org, I believe it is, the website. And it's all the maps of all of South Carolina showing the areas of need. So that was our first investment in broadband. And since then, we've looked at different projects because we firmly believe in urban-rural partnerships. And that led to the Digital Equity Collaborative, which is how we got introduced. And here we are.
Thank you so much. So we are going to start, and I think you'll hear in just a minute how each of these pieces, parts, right, different parts of the work actually, actually do come together. So Gina, we are going to start with you, if we might. And we know that access to high-speed internet is one of the 4 areas required for communities to achieve digital equity and inclusion. Will you take a little time and share with us what Home Telecom has been doing to ensure that families and children, particularly in rural areas, have access to high-speed internet? And then just some sub-questions in there. What are some of the barriers to access? And how can the participants here today ensure that families can access and adopt the technology now and in the future?
Sure. I think after COVID, everybody realized the importance of broadband. This better? With people having to all of a sudden work from home and learn from home and have medical care from home, it was obvious that in the rural areas of Berkeley County, especially, it was a gaping hole there. And if you can pull up or back up to the map, I can kind of give an idea of the areas that I'm talking about. But thanks that's probably the only time you'll ever hear anyone say this, but thanks to COVID, the government funding became available to help various broadband providers apply for grant funding to help expand our fiber networks. And here you see there's a map of Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. And in the areas that are grayed out, especially like around the Lake Moultrie, where it's gray up top, you can see in those gray areas, those are areas that are underserved or unserved. There's areas such as Bono and St. Stephen's and Cross, especially, also around Jamestown and Hugie. And you can see here with the color coded, we've got various construction going on, but there's a lot left to do. And we're working rigorously to try to get more grant funding to do that. On the next slide, you'll see that we have been applying for grants, and we have been working very hard to get fiber expanded out into the rural areas. And with our matching grants, what we have to do is Home Telecom has committed to invest 50% of the cost prior to receiving any of the funding. So as you'll see here, the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff had a CARES project that we applied for, and that allowed for 90 miles of fiber. And that particular project is 100% complete, and it covered Alvin, Jamestown, and Pineville. Then came along the USDA Reconnect project. That's a $16 million project. That's about 78% to help provide 3,800 fiber miles to Allendale, McClellanville, Jamestown, and Hugie. That's about 3,000 addresses that will have access to high-speed internet. Recently, there's the Dorchester County ARPA funding, and that's about 87.5% to help areas such as Givans and South Dorchester to get high-speed internet. And most recently, we were approved for the South Carolina office of the South Carolina Broadband Office, and then we received a grant there to help expand into Hugie and areas of New Hope. Now, we do have we are hoping the broadband office, they have 3 more rounds of grants to award, and we're hoping to get more funding from that. And we've also applied for a grant with Berkeley County as part of their ARPA funding to cover 4,800 homes, which would be 98% of Berkeley County would then have access to reliable broadband service. We have not heard back from that one yet. And then, as you all know, yesterday, the Governor McMaster announced the Get Connected South Carolina program, which is going to be a campaign to understand where additional high-speed broadband is needed, because there is an additional $100 million in funding that we are very hopeful for to get that funding.
Okay, we're going to share here for a little bit, and Latoya, we're coming right over to you and hoping that your microphone is on. Otherwise, we'll just pass it right along. So, excuse me, digital equity or lack thereof, as I mentioned earlier, has been named a social determinant of health. What issues are families facing when it comes to affordability of basic needs, digital literacy, and access to hardware and software? And what are the implications for children and for families?
Okay, so I will start with the mic. So I will start with accessibility. In Berkeley County, well, Tri-County wide, specifically Berkeley County, a lot of our clients come in excess of 45 minutes to an hour to the center for internet access, computer access, because there are no libraries in the other areas. So in the center, we have a computer lab that we offer clients the ability to use the internet. If they use it for printing or faxing, they don't have to pay that money when they go to Staples, and it allows them to be able to save a little bit more, especially when you're talking about the clients who are, grandparents on fixed incomes or parents who are working multiple jobs to pay bills. When you're talking about the finances and the affordability of it, that is a lot of things that they have to, think about balancing and juggling. A lot of our elderly members are, deciding whether or not they're going to have someone that they pay to bring them because there's a transportation issue, as I discussed previously. And that also, is something that they may have to, juggle a couple of things around, or, they may do appointment stacking. So a lot of times we have clients who use the Medicaid ride share that allows them to be transported to their appointments, and then they go to the doctor, then they come and see me, and then they go across the street and go pick up their medication. So a lot of times that affords them the opportunity to be able to do that. As far as the implications for the children, we've kind of discussed a little bit on it before. When COVID and everything happened, we were kind of thrust into parents being teachers. The children previously had access to the internet, being able to leave and go to the schools. And, at home in some of the rural areas, they did not have internet access. So that kind of was a barrier. In addition to that, we have grandparents who are also, the primary caregivers for children. And so in addition to that, we're talking about them being in areas where they have not had access to the internet previously and are now being required to become a teacher. So I think it's, a great idea. It's a great, opportunity to be able to use some data, kind of be able to figure out different ways to help the clients in the area.
Thank you, Latoya. That's really helpful. So Paula, coming right over to you. The Office of Rural Health has been leading the way on a multi-sector group representing urban, rural, local, and statewide partners who have an interest in ensuring equitable broadband access across South Carolina. Will you help us synthesize these streams of work that we're hearing about from our panelists and the work that is being spearheaded by the Office of Rural Health and what our audience members can do to participate and help move it forward?
Absolutely. So we've looked at how, so for instance, the Office of Regulatory Staff, they aren't just given the money, they actually have to apply for some of this funding. I don't know all the details, but I know that they have to apply. Currently, they're in the planning period of digital equity money. And that means there's more money coming for digital equity. I don't know if you know this, but in the last year, a digital equity office has been established. And in the last 2 years, the broadband office was formed. So this is all new, but despite these offices being so new, South Carolina has a wonderful reputation in this space. And in fact, Jim Stritzinger, if my memory serves me correctly, he's been contacted from other states asking for assistance on how to employ these funds and how to get everyone engaged. So we've heard from Gina about where the money is going to and the need. We've heard from Latoya about how programs and individuals get this, but this is not, or get the tools and the education to properly use the internet. But this is not possible if the organizations don't talk to each other. Because I didn't know about Phyllis and her work and Gina and Latoya until, this past year. But it's always so refreshing to know who's doing what. So you have this digital equity coalition here in this area, and around COVID, those in a rural outcomes call said, hey, we need to talk about who's who in digital space. So we formed the Digital Equity Collaborative, including urban, rural, everyone. So it's important to have urban-rural partnerships. It's also important to include all sectors. I think one of my hobbies, and it's also what makes up my job, is to find how any organization, any individual in their career or their profession can be a part of this initiative or any other initiative. And so when we talk about what are the next steps, it's very important to not lose sight of broadband is available, but now what? If we have, I think there's been the reference of electricity. If you have electricity in your home, but you don't have the fixtures and you don't have the light switches, the rockers, whatever you've got, or the light bulbs, it's not going to happen. And so the digital literacy, the fiber, these are the fixtures, the light bulbs, the switches, and that's a team effort. And that was the call we had back in August, that the accessibility is a team effort. And you'll be quite surprised at the different resources that are in the state. So I see the slide up, the digital economy ecosystem. So not only do we have the Digital Equity Collaborative hosted through our office, but we also have this project that is funded by the USDA. And right now I'm finalizing a grant for this application to expand into Oconee. And can you get to the next one, I think it shows the map. There we go. So those are our current digital economy ecosystem sites. So we're in 5 areas and we would like to expand to Oconee, and then we would like to go along somewhere in the coast. And what is the digital economy ecosystem? It's initially the process, technical assistance of a roadmap, and it's getting leaders together, different sectors, different people in the community to talk about what would be best suited for your community to participate in the digital economy ecosystem. Because in the Charleston, I live in Greenville, so in the Charlestons and the Greenvilles and like these bigger cities, they have everything you could imagine to succeed your kids. My son goes to an engineering, type school, track school, and in rural areas, they don't have that, and it's very unfair. And so I'm proud to work at the Office of Rural Health because we, and you guys included, we're advocating for those kids in rural areas or underserved areas who don't have such schools, who don't have such resources, but through these efforts of broadband programming and digital equity programming, they could have these programs, whether it's online or a new building, but this is the start of something amazing. And it's up to us to make sure that those resources are available. I know I've jumped around a lot, but yes, our office is happy to facilitate meetings at a statewide level, and we're participating on a national level to talk about how we can get these different resources to vulnerable populations. And I had a conversation just Friday about how we can include those re-entering society, after incarceration. And there's an app in Florida that they're working with that they're knocking it out of the park. And so we might pilot it here in South Carolina. And so it'll be wonderful to see, that comparison and seeing the difference in vulnerable areas and populations and what happens when you apply an amazing tool that's in someone's in their pocket. So something you can use as of today, if you don't know about it already, is getconnectedsc.org. And I learned about it on Tuesday on the, what was it? Vicki, where were we? At the State House, the press conference, excuse me. And they shared this important tool, and it's something you can share to any community, any organization. And it's to see if it's to let the Office of Regulatory staff know if you have good reception or not reception, sorry, broadband connectivity. And it's very interesting because it shows like a face, like if you're dissatisfied with something or you're happy, and you can slide the bar and it increases that frustration. And so it's very user friendly. It's quite comical, but yes, it's a tool that's at your fingertips right now to share, so ORS knows where they can serve communities, and also the SC Digital Drive and the websites of everyone up here and their partners are your resources.
Thank you so much. I hope you all can hear just from the different sectors that each of these panelists represent, the amazing work that is going on in the region and throughout the state. So please help me and join me in thanking them for their expertise and time today. And I believe we are moving into a table discussion at this point. So nope, we're going back. So on your tables, Merrill, is this right? Or do you want to introduce this? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So on your table, we ask that you take just a few minutes. The questions are there to talk about and share. Y'all knew I had to drop something at some point, right? To talk about and share and record any adoption and access activities you have benefited from contributed to or witnessed at your company or organization or neighborhood since the pandemic began in 2020? And there's a secondary question, which is consider personal business areas that may be impacted by digital equity and inclusion. And what might you change moving forward now that you better understand some of the nuances of digital equity? So we have 5 minutes for you all to discuss at your tables and just have a conversation. Okay. It sounds like great conversation has been happening, and we would be grateful and are curious if there are some tables that want to report out on the conversation, and if there are questions that you all have for the panelists, we are happy to answer those as best we can.
Hi. So we had a really cool table because we had folks here that work with Gina, as well as with United Way. But they were commenting on the fact that apparently a certain community, now has 100% completion in terms of broadband, but yet Laura knows people in that community that do not have access and don't know how to get it. So that there really seems to be a disconnect sometimes between getting maybe the physical broadband laid and people in the community actually being able to access that.
Yep, that's a great observation. And I'm wondering, not to put my colleague on the spot, but Vicki Ingalls is sitting right there. And Vicki, do you want to address that on any level at all?
So something that we've been talking about at our table is the Affordable Connectivity Program, which has been around for about a year through the infrastructure bill. This is a way for many families to get connected for at least a $30 a month off their bill. Whether you have a student that goes to a school with free or reduced lunch, if you get food stamps, SSI, disability, VA benefits, there's about a dozen criteria here. The challenge we know is getting this information out into our community and then helping people sign up. So at our table, we have folks from the library system at Charleston County. They have a model for helping people sign up for utility and rent assistance. And so we could certainly scale that model with support from volunteers to come to our branch libraries and help people sign up for this benefit. We've also been talking to Charleston County School District and Berkeley County School District about ways we can get into the schools and help their parent advocates and parent navigators support the same functions. So there's a lot of ways we can scale this up so more people will have access to this program at a minimum to at least help make it more affordable.
Yes, and that was one thing that I wanted to cover as well. At Home Telecom, we offer, and I know other providers offer it as well, is the Affordable Connectivity Program. And with ours, it's Community Connect. And there have been some issues with the Universal Service Administration trying to get your application approved. So there's 2 steps to it, actually. The first step is rather simple. You get a code, and if you call us with that code, you can get $39.95 for 100 meg internet, 100 megabit by 100 megabit, or even 100 megabit by 15 meg up is good internet to have, and that can be at $39.95. And then once your code is approved, then you can get an up to additional $30 discount for a total of $9.95. In addition to that, there's the Lifeline program that's been around much longer than ACP, and with the same eligibility, and people can couple that with the ACP plan, and that's an additional $9.25 discount. So customers can get internet as low as 70 cents as long as they meet eligibility requirements. I have a question. If you go to homesc.com/ACP. Well, that's a very good question. Thank you.
So for Berkeley County residents, we have access to the computer there. So if they do come to us, they're able to get assistance with filling out the application. We also have a partnership with J.K. Gordine Elementary in St. Stephen, where we kind of have the same center out there. So we're able to also provide that same access to clients to be able to do it if they don't have access at home.
Sure. So to add to their responses and to answer your question, there's currently a curriculum being revised or added on to community health workers. And it's a partnership with, I think, the Community Alignment, the Center for Community Alignment, and also Palmetto Care Connections. Palmetto Care Connections started off as telehealth, but they have been actively involved in leading digital literacy, and they started with seniors. I don't know if you've seen this on ETV, but currently there is this curriculum, and there's a lot of funding for community health workers. And I think that is one great solution, not the only, but it's one great solution while we have this culture shift of when everyone is able to have broadband.
Our friends at the library.
Thank you. I'll just say that that's the problem, that we don't have, we need partners to tell the community about these programs that help people sign up for services that they need. We need everyone to work on the issue to make any leeway with it. But that's what we're trying to do. That's the problem, though. That's what we need.
211 for this?
I don't.
Say, hey, I don't have internet connection. With the resources at 211, I'm not looking at the right person. There we go. But I mean, anybody can call 211. I post that on Facebook so many times during the week. And if that was a resource. Yes.
So yeah, 211 is definitely a resource for everyone, Tri-County-wide. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they also have access to be able to use it via the text feature or the phone feature. The same information that they would have if they called the center and spoke to one of our representatives there, they would have access to via 211.
And don't forget about the resource getconnectedsc.org, because there's a survey and again, to someone's point earlier, like, well, what if they don't have the internet? But if they're, let's say, at the library, or if there's an advocate for them, they can fill out this questionnaire. And if it's a community, a cluster, then that message goes out, and that would be a priority area. And Gina, I don't know exactly how this works, but how does it work when there's money available? Don't ISPs look at the gaps and then they apply to fill in those gaps?
Yes, they look at the census blocks, which was on the map, the gray areas, and those are census blocks that are identified as not having at least 25 by 3. And we try to aim for 100 by 15 or 100 by 100 because that's technically what's needed. But we apply based on the census blocks and the amount of people in that census block. And then that's how the funding, and then we apply for the funding, and then it's up for the broadband office or whomever is reviewing the grants to make that decision.
And I'm going to jump in here just really quickly. Gina, you had made a comment at some point about door knocking, that there were people going out into the community, knocking on doors to talk to people. So I think that's one avenue.
We did that in Allendale one Saturday. We created an Allendale Blitz because we had put in the fiber in the Allendale community and we were not getting the responses that we had hoped for. So we set up a tent at one of the restaurants, local restaurants, and then we had workers or employees go out and actually knock on doors. I think we added about 20 customers that day, but not many people want to be bothered on a Saturday morning with someone knocking on your door. But we are continually trying to get the word out. The community has been wonderful. The mayor of Allendale, the town administrators, they've all been wonderful, but it's just getting that word out. A big question that we get is, I don't need the internet, especially in the older demographic. I don't need it. Why do I need it? So trying to educate the older demographic as to why they need it is a big need.
I think there was another table over here when we started that maybe had a comment or question that they wanted to share. Thought somebody had their hand raised.
This question is for Gina, and you mentioned people can have the access to get a code and get the discounts to get the internet. Until when you have this program, you have enough budget for how many people can you provide that service? Do you have the numbers maybe?
Currently, the number of customers that are on that program, I don't have off the top of my head. But there is no limit to the amount of people who can apply for it. We're hoping the funding remains. I know that's a question that I can't answer as to how long this funding is going to be available through USAC for this type of program. But as of right now, there's no limits to the amount of people that we can add to this program.
So I have a question real quick too. I have the microphone, so I get a question. So my question is to all of you. You're all doing amazing things. And it was wonderful to hear the work that you're doing and the efforts that's going into it. With the program that was just announced, the plan that's going to be developed, that was just announced earlier this week through the governor's office, is that going to coordinate more efforts? Like the things that you're doing, will this help coordinate efforts?
It should. I reviewed some of the plan, and based on the target audiences and also the deliverables, everything we're doing falls into those categories. And so I would hope and foresee that programming like ours would play a role into this planning process or receiving funds for expansion. I don't know how that works yet. I haven't been in those conversations, but I think it's going to be great. And I think more money is coming after the planning.
And I would add that is one of the primary purposes of the Low Country Digital Equity Coalition, is to ensure that what is happening in the Low Country region is as coordinated and aligned as it possibly can be. And I think everybody here in this room knows there are so many organizations doing amazing work. Part of the work is for us to come together and see how we can amplify and drive toward greater impact by working together and by first understanding and knowing what one another is actually doing.
That's good. Great. Thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments? Anybody want to share anything?
Well, great. Well, I'm going to step up here and close us out today. We were going to stay on time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. One thing I do want to point out as you talk about how do you learn more? How do you help people? What do you tell people? How do you get access? How do we do this without the internet? There's a couple of things I can say. First of all, thank you for coming today. And I hope that you can walk away being an advocate, sending people to 211 or community resource centers with Trident United Way if you run into someone. There's a couple other things. On the bottom of your placemat, there is this QR code. And thankfully, we all know what QR codes are, thanks to COVID and restaurants. That is how you can show your support through Tri-County Cradle to Career if you want to sign the digital pledge. This is not committing you to anything. It is just saying, hey, I'm a part of the fabric of Charleston and this area to say, I support digital equity. Your company, your personal name, your logo, that's about it. But that's one thing you can do to just say, I'm part of the fabric of a solution. Secondly, there is a form on the table if you would like to personally be a volunteer. Tri-County Cradle to Career, and Vicki, who spoke for a minute, is going to take that information. If you want to fill that out and just leave it behind, we'll grab it and get into her. And so we can push out information to you about a volunteer opportunity. So is the library asking and for people to come help train people? So there are programs that are happening and starting. It's just hard to say exactly what's happening because as it comes together, it's nice to be able to reach out and have the volunteers. So if you're interested in being pushed out more information, you have a group at work who wants to get together on a Saturday and do some volunteer work. How about come to a library and teach people how to fill out the forms to get cheaper internet? So different things like that. So, or teach them how to use the internet. So those are the two things. And then also you will see the cards, the 2-on-1 cards that you can take and give away. If there aren't enough forms for volunteers, there are only a few on each table. On the back, there's a stack. So you can fill it out. So anyway, thank you all for coming today. Thank you for supporting. And oh, one quick question because we have exactly enough time. I'm going to let Lisa Van Bergen speak to you for 1 minute about Trident United Way and our Women United, one of the things coming up.
Thanks, Merrill, and thanks for all being here. Hi, I'm Lisa, and I'm the chair of Women United this year. And I want to encourage you all, if you haven't ever been involved before, every year we honor 3 female leaders in our community. We've done this for many years, and we honor a role model, a nonprofit leader, and a behind-the-scenes hero. And so if you're interested in honoring someone, if you look around and see, wow, this woman is doing great work in the community, let's try and honor her. There are links on the Trident United Way website to go do that nomination. Jessica, remind me when the nominations are due? March 6th. So we'd like to get this done in the next 10 days or so. So please, we encourage you to do that, to nominate folks. It's a really nice way to, and you don't have to be, you don't have to be a member of Women United to nominate someone. You can be anyone from the community. All right. So it's a really nice way to honor our colleagues. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And one bit of housekeeping, the badges need to stay here with Black Bob. They'll end up tossing the printout. But if you'll leave those before you go out the door, and you're welcome to go at any of these side doors or go back through the front. So thank you for coming.